Enough respect, I mean, we network across the globe, cause it's a global market in case you didn't know. And since we all about information flow, let me be the first one to welcome you to Tech Zone with Paul Amadeus Lane. Let's talk tech, cause technology changing the game. It's all good in the hood, it's everywhere. Now let's get to the show, cause we live on air, yeah.
Welcome back to the Tech Zone. I am Paul Amadeus Lane. So happy that you decided to stay with us on the second edition of the show. Aren't you, Sean? They decided to come back. Shortly, we're going to be talking to an audio expert, Steve Savanyu from Audio Technica, about the innovation of the microphone. Has it changed over the years? And I know, Sean, I know you're really up on this scene. Some of us in the audio world, video world, you know, microphones is something that's on our mind that we definitely want to know about and talk about. So we're just minutes away from that discussion with Steve Savanyu. However, this story I came across from the i3 magazine. Remember, we had the folks on from the Consumer Technology Association about their magazine i3, and I told everybody to subscribe to it because there is some amazing stuff in it. There was a story about eyes in the sky. And folks, I'm telling you, the drone craze is about to take off like a bunch of wild dogs. You watch. See, there's a lot of crossover when it comes to drones. VR. That's going to make drones a lot more appealing. 3D robots along with the drones. See, AI, robotics, all these things are really going to amp up this trend. Now, many are calling this, they're calling this a mega trend. That word is not thrown out there lightly. When something is titled a mega trend, be on the lookout for it. Now, the question is for you and I, to drone or not to drone? That is the question. And what's legislation going to look like when it comes to drones? So this is a story we're going to be following because some see that drones can be a public good. A lot of companies want to institute it on Amazon. Has rolled out in some places the drone delivery. I mean, get your product within a couple of hours. That's pretty cool. But what about those who misuse technology? See, that's what we have to worry about too. That shouldn't shy us away from using the technology, but something that we should be aware of. So we'll be following this story closely. You ready to talk about microphones? All right, let's get to work. We're talking about microphone technology. And who best to talk about it is an audio expert himself over at Audio Technica. We have Steve Savanyu. Hey, Steve, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing really good. How are you doing?
Doing great. And Steve, sometimes I talk about how technology has changed the game. But when it comes to microphones, have we seen a shift in the way technology is when it comes to that innovation?
We're seeing some innovations in microphones, but I have to be honest with you. One of the cool things about microphones is the laws of physics behind them haven't changed in years and years. And microphones are probably one of the few things that still hold their value, because I've got some collector's microphones in my mic locker that go back to the 1930s and they're still going strong. However, technology is definitely improving. Things like USB output microphones, newer technologies and newer materials used in the diaphragms and so on. That's all there. But fundamentally, the microphones, the way they work just hasn't changed in a whole lot.
And Steve, have some people tried to, I guess, tinker with the technology of microphones to try to get them to sound a certain way, and it just didn't come off that good?
Well, you know, one of the things, the so-called secret sauce that every manufacturer has is what they do to it's all physics. You know, it's what they do to the diaphragms, what they do to the capsules, what they do to the internal tuning to give a microphone a specific sound. You know, microphones are like I always use the example of the artist with a little palette of paints. You know, he's got red, blue, green, yellow, orange, purple, and so on. And microphones have different flavors or different colorations, just like the artist's palette of paints. And depending on what you're using the microphone for, the specific application, one microphone may sound better on your voice, for example, than it does on my voice.
And I'm glad you said that, because I remember when I first got into broadcasting, like some of the other guys, they sounded awesome on a microphone. Like, yeah, welcome to, and I'm like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm glad you said that, because when it comes to picking a microphone, how do we know which one is going to fit our voice?
Well, it all depends. There's a couple of things. The closer you get to most microphones, the more low end you get. So if you want to get that big deep radio voice, moving a little bit closer to your microphone will cause that to happen. Consequently, some people like a more sensitive microphone because they're a quiet talker versus someone that's a loud talker. Say the guy that's calling sports, the football game on Sunday afternoon, and his guy's running towards the goal and he's screaming into that microphone. That microphone's got to be able to handle that loud screaming as well as handle the soft talking when guy misses the field goal.
And I'm glad you said that, because sometimes, when you see ones or hear ones like on these sports show, and they're like full throat, like, and it's score, and there's no distortion or anything. Is that someone riding like the mixer, or is that the microphone giving that effect?
Well, it's a combination of both. One, it's a microphone that's not going to overload with loud sounds. And typically a dynamic microphone, similar to your BP40, similar to the one that I'm using, you can get very loud on that microphone and it's not going to overload. Secondly, it's probably going through some sort of a voice processing channel. And what the voice processing channel is going to do is it's going to add some compression. It's going to add some de-essing and things of that nature that will help also improve the overall audio quality.
Steve, when it comes to the overall quality of the audio, what can we do to make sure that the sound comes off more robust? Are you seeing a lot of people doing things post-production now rather than pre-production, or has the technology caught up where you can actually have these limiters, these processors going with a live feed?
Well, let's take a look at a recording situation. I always tell people microphone placement becomes real important and microphone choice becomes real important. A lot of people say, well, we'll just fix it in the mix. And oftentimes you can. If the signal's overloaded, if the signal's distorted, the signal's too loud or the signal's too soft, there's not a whole lot you can do. There are some things you can do. But in reality, when I'm recording, one of the first things I do is think about where I want to put the microphones and what microphones I want to use, the ones I want to choose for what I'm doing. And not every microphone is going to work in every application. Obviously, I wouldn't use a dynamic microphone that's not very sensitive as drum overheads to pick up the subtle nuances or over a string section in an orchestra. So you have to be aware of what your tools are.
And with Audio Technica, I like, you have the consumer side and you have the pro side. And one thing I like about both sides is that you guys definitely do your homework, make sure things are sounding correctly. And in the field, how do you use your expertise and all your experience into making sure that the products are staying true to what it should sound like?
Well, it's interesting because our motto is always listening, and our engineers are always listening. We're listening to what the customer wants. We're listening to what the products do. We're listening to the quality. We have some extensive testing facilities both in our factories in Japan and in our facilities here in the U.S. And one of the things, I always tell people that the Germans are known for their precision. The Austrians are known for their mechanics. The Japanese are known for their consistency. It's like McDonald's. You go in there and you're always going to get your Big Mac is going to be the same no matter whether you're eating in New York City, LA, or London. And the same thing with our microphones. As you go from model to model, two of the same type, you're going to see a consistency. And that's what we're really known for, is the fact that our product is consistent. We don't necessarily do the so-called matched pairs of microphones for stereo recording because the products are so consistent that we can pull two off the shelf and they're going to be really close.
And I can definitely attest to that fact using your microphones. And this one right here, this is a beauty right here. And I love it, full sound, and it really, makes my voice sound like I know what I'm doing, Steve. So thank you. You're making me sound professional. I really
I'm glad we can do that.
Yeah, and
that's a great microphone. That's the BP40. That is ours. We call it a broadcast production microphone, but I've used that microphone on many other things. I've used it on Barry sax in a live situation. I've used it on kick drum. I use that myself for when I do voiceover work. It is a phenomenal sounding microphone. It's a good looking microphone too, so it looks good on air.
It is. So all my radio colleagues out there, if you got that home studio, this is something you definitely want to get in there because like you said, the voiceover quality is amazing. I used to have to do some things in post. Sometimes I don't have to do anymore with using this microphone, and it really makes my job a lot easier. And looking at how things have changed over the years and your experience too in the recording business, what have you seen the most change in shift in mindset with the digital and the analog? What are we seeing out there?
It's funny. When I started in this business many years ago, I did a lot of field recording, and I would carry with me a very large reel-to-reel tape recorder using very large reels of tape and a fairly big, heavy mixer to bring in multiple microphones. It was like a small truckload of stuff to record something. And today I go out with a portable recorder I can basically put in my pocket and a pair of really high quality microphones I can put in my other pocket. And I get some phenomenal high quality sound. But again, it's all knowing how to use the tools. Because if you don't know how to use the tools, even though you may have the best microphones out there and the greatest recorders out there, if you don't know how to use them, you're not going to have great quality audio.
Well said. I covered Comic-Con this year, and I was in a lot of the press lines, press rooms. I actually did my recording, the video recording part, on my Samsung Galaxy S7 in 4K. I had a nice microphone, and I'm like, it came out better than we did when we had the big cameras. So you are correct. I remember when we had the reel-to-reel, the half-inch reel-to-reel, the quarter-inch reel-to-reel, the 8-track and everything. And, I kind of missed the warmthness of those days, but I will take convenience anytime, Steve.
It's interesting because a lot of journalists are now moving to using the smartphones as their field recording, field gathering tool. It always reminds me, years ago, I had right when the DSLRs came out that could shoot high quality video. I was with some friends and we were in a very large city that has lots of gambling. I won't mention any names. And it was during the NAB show. And of course, all the camera guys are coming out, bringing out their big on the shoulder cameras. And we walked into one of the casinos and we were just kind of shooting some fun little video and some audio. And nobody bothered us. And this guy walked in with his on the shoulder camera to shoot some home movies, and they tossed him out.
Wow. Yeah. And that happens because, I remember being in that press line, you had the guys there with the big cameras and everything. Here I am with my Samsung Galaxy S7 and my microphone, and I'm shooting video, and it's like, it comes out even better than theirs. And I really think a lot of people are seeing that you don't really have to have the major equipment like you did before to get the great sound. And Steve, before we let you go too, I want to talk about the different microphones. We have the dynamic microphones. We have the condenser microphones. I made a mistake a few years back when I did my home studio. I got a condenser microphone for my broadcasting and voiceovers. That was a no-no. Why is that a no-no, Steve?
Well, it's interesting. The dynamic microphone works like a loudspeaker in reverse. You have a diaphragm attached to a coil of wire that moves back and forth over a magnet. And it can take some really loud sounds, and you can work that microphone really close. And a lot of voice talent, a lot of radio personalities like to do that because they use the microphone as a tool. As I said earlier, the closer you get, the little bit more bottom end you get. A condenser microphone, on the other hand, is a lot more sensitive. And in some applications, someone that gets loud on the microphone can actually overload the electronics in it and maybe make it pop and so forth. Again, it's all knowing how to use the tools.
So, Steve, why don't you tell us how we can get some of these great products, my friend?
You can always go to our website. It's www.audio-technica.com. That's www.audio-technica.com. There's a wealth of information. There's product information as well as just some basic how microphones work information. Great educational tools as well.
Steve Savanyu, thank you, my friend. And I love the way you took me back to broadcasting school. WWW. I remember I used to get dinged on that all the time in my exercises. So I appreciate for stressing proper enunciation out there, my friend. And we look forward to chatting with you soon, okay?
Thanks, Paul. And from someone that does voiceovers all the time, I totally understand.
Absolutely. You have a great voice. See, I have to work in mine, but yours come natural, my friend.
Thank you.
Again, we thank Steve Savanyu for joining us on that segment of the Tech Zone talking about microphones. And he really educated us when it comes to it. And don't forget to check out the folks at Audio Technica. Little disclaimer, they're going to be part of the giveaway that we're going to have next week, so you don't want to miss that. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. Believe me. Yes, it is. All right, we'll be back here on the Tech Zone talking about a great event happening in Silicon Valley you do not want to miss. We'll be back in 2 and 2, talking more on the Tech Zone.